Welcome to the Real XP Show. I'm AG. Today, we're here in Harlem at Atla World Missionary Church to sit down with a man who's been one of this neighborhood's loudest and most controversial voices for decades. Pastor James David Manning says New York City is being sold out by greedy corporations and crooked politicians. And that's why he stepped up to run for mayor, first as a Republican, now as an independent. His sermons pull no punches. His signs go viral. Some people say he's fighting for truth. Others say he crosses the line. So today, we're going to hear directly from him. No filter, no spin, about who he is, why he's doing this, and what it means for Harlem and for New York City. I'm AG, and this is The Real XP Show. And today, joining me is
Pastor James David Manning, the next mayor of New York City.
the next mayor of New York City.
Yes.
So, now that I have you here, I would love to ask you some questions that maybe New Yorkers don't have the time or the chance to ask.
Okay.
Right? So first, I want to start off with who you are, right? Who is Pastor James David Manning?
I am a 44-year pastor of the Bethelite Community Baptist Church, along with the Outlaw World Ministries Church. I've been in Harlem for the past 44 years. I have served this community faithfully. I came out of prison in 1978. I was convicted in two states. I was convicted in New York State for armed robbery in 1976, I think it was. And also I was convicted of burglary in Florida, 1975, on Miami Beach. So I served time in two states, Rayford State Prison, and I served time at Dannemora, Clinton, and Auburn. And I was released in July. It was June of 1978. And I came to this church. Pastor Stanley Miller, Alexander Stanley was the pastor. I joined. Pardon me. He died a couple of years later. The people called me as the pastor, and here I am.
So how was life growing up, and what led you to make some decisions that caused you to be incarcerated for a time?
I grew up in rural North Carolina. I grew up during the Jim Crow period. I graduated from a segregated high school, even though the Board of Education, Brown versus the Board of Education with Thurgood Marshall, Supreme Court had ruled that all schools across America should be integrated. North Carolina still didn't integrate their schools. I graduated in 1965. That was nearly 10 years later, and the school was still segregated. However, I grew up in what was a peaceful part of North Carolina, though it was rural. I grew up extremely poor. I was a sharecropper son, and I'm not sure what everybody knows about sharecropping. Sharecropping is just one step away from slavery. When slaves were released from the slavery as a constitutional issue, what the owners of the land did said, all right, y'all can stay on the land, stay in the houses that you stayed in, and you can work the fields, and at the end of the year, we'll settle up on how much you should get and how much we should get. So it was really just one step away from slavery. I grew up that way. I graduated from high school at 18 years of age, but I grew up in what I thought was a pretty peaceful time in my life.
What decisions or what circumstances got you to be convicted of burglary and you said armed robbery?
Armed robbery, yeah.
Okay.
When I came to New York, I entered college and I did fairly well. I think I did extraordinarily well. I got a job with some of the Fortune 500 corporations. I worked for Bankers Trust. And after working for Bankers Trust, I went to work for the world's largest, most powerful soap company, Procter & Gamble, that makes Tide and Jif and Colgate. Not Colgate, God forbid. But I'm Crest toothpaste. And I got a great job with them as a marketing director. They gave me a company car. They gave me an expense account. I was doing extraordinarily well. But the 60s and the early 70s were a very tumultuous time. Those of you who did not live through that period, there was the Vietnam War. There was the Dr. Martin Luther King Civil Rights Movement, the March on Washington in 1963. There was the Student Nonviolent Committee with the Rap Brown. There was Malcolm X. There was the not Nelson Mandela, but there was Elijah Muhammad. There were a large number of people The social movement of the 60s was incredible. I think it's the most incredible decade of American history. There were so many movements going on. I got caught up in that. Even though I had a great job, I had a great future, I had a wife and children. I had an extraordinary future. I'd stay with Procter and Gamble. I probably at this point would be retired with several $1 million in my bank account, my retirement account. I probably have houses in two different places. But something just gripped me. Well, actually, what happened? I was driving my company car. A company actually gave me an automobile after I've been in rural North Carolina driving a mule and a wagon for the most part of my life. Somebody gave me a car and said they would take the expenses of the gas and everything for the automobile. I was in Brooklyn and driving up Fulton Street, and I was there just the other day. In the late 60s, the early 70s, it was, heroin was king. Crack became a problem a little bit later on. But black men were shooting heroin, like going to McDonald's these days. And there I was with a shirt and tie. I mean, I had an expense account, I had an American Express card, I had a Diners Club card in my pocket given to me by this corporation. I was doing extremely well. But I saw my brothers on heroin, nodding out, homeless, sleeping in abandoned buildings. And I knew that was going on. And I decided I was going to leave the corporate world and try to do something to help them. I didn't know what I was going to do. So Procter and Gamble had its regional office on White Plains Road in Scarsdale, New York. So after watching the heroin epidemic, watching my brothers nodding out, wanting to reach out to help them, to do something, because I thought I had made it. Can I help them? I went to Procter and Gamble and I told Mr. R.O. Dodge, I'm resigning. He said, what the hell's wrong with you? Why are you quitting? I said, it's just a sign of the times. And it was a tumultuous time. It was Vietnam. Malcolm had been killed, but still there was a spirit of Malcolm. There was Black Muslims. There was the Black Panthers, and all these various movements. And I just got caught up in it. And I thought I became militant. I thought that's what I became. And I quit my job. And I saw this story in the Daily News about this burglar named Jack Murph the Surf, who had stole the Star of India, a very precious diamond, and they'd stole it from the hotel in Miami Beach. And so I said, that sounds like an interesting career. So I decided I was going to start burglarizing homes, stealing jewelry. I would read the New York Times to find out who lived where, people that had wealthy money. I made a commitment I would never burglarize anybody black their house. I wasn't racist. I just, if you're black, I'm not going to burglarize your house. And while I'm not an anti-Semite, I love my Jewish brothers. I particularly preyed on Jewish people because they have a lot of jewelry. They have a lot of money. The Jewish men buy their wives jewels every year. But I was reading the New York Times, and I saw where F.W. Woolworth, I don't know if you remember that organization. It was a pretty powerful organization. It was as big as the McDonald's at one time in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. It was a major luncheonette type of corporation with also it sold products, all kinds of clothing and other things, toys as well. And the son of F.W. Woolworth died, and he lived in, I think, Upper Montclair, New Jersey. So when I read that the son had died, I realized there would be a funeral and a eulogy, so I figured they would be out of the house at some point in time. So while they were at the funeral, I burglarized their house.
Okay.
And they had a safe, so I took the safe. I couldn't crack it there at the house. I couldn't open it. So I took the safe out the wall and put it on a blanket and dragged it back to where my car was. It was so heavy. And in that safe was what I estimated to be $250,000 worth of jewels. Now, this is in the early 70s. So $250,000 was a lot of money. So I fenced the jewels off to this little Italian guy. Was little, but he thought he was a capo. He was my fence. It had been my fence for quite some time, but this was my biggest catch, right? And so I fenced the jewels for $50,000. I get $30,000 at the moment I give the jewels to him. He told me he's going to give him the next $20,000 a little bit later on. So I'm dealing with him. And so I get the 30,000, and a month go by and I don't get the other 20. Another month go by and I don't get the other 20. So I keep talking to him about my $20,000 that he owes me, right? At this time, I got a girlfriend, I'm paying her rent. I got a wife and children, I'm paying their rent. I got an expensive car. I need my money.
Okay.
So 2 months go by and I don't get my money. So I go to he ran a used car lot on Bushwick Avenue. It's what he had as a front for his business. So I go to ask him for my money, but I carried a sawed-off shotgun with me when I went to ask him for my money. That's all I was doing. And so he said, all right, I got to go get it. I got to go to the bank, stay here. Because I showed him the shotgun. I put it in his secretary's mouth. I put the barrel of it in her mouth. And so he said, I got to go get the money. Just so you stay here. So I stayed there. And I sent my brother with him. He called the police. He chumped up, called the police, punked up is what he did. And he called the police. Next thing I know, the place is surrounded with police cars. And so I get arrested for armed robbery. It was a business deal that went bad. It wasn't armed robbery. The judge knew it wasn't armed robbery. The judge let me out on my own recognizance. No bail was set. And a couple of weeks later, the judge offered me 1 year in Rikers Island for having an armed weapon, not an armed weapon, having a weapon without a license.
Okay.
It wasn't armed robbery. The judge didn't feel it was armed robbery. So I get out on bail, and then I go to Florida. Now, Florida, Miami Beach is probably one of the richest places on planet Earth in terms of housing, because it's a drafted beach. It's not a real beach. They made it years ago by drafting the sand and putting the water there and building houses there. And a lot of people with a lot of money live on Miami Beach. So I started burglarizing houses on Miami Beach.
So you went from New York, burglarizing homes, then found your way to Florida.
Right.
Okay.
Because I didn't go back to court on the armed robbery thing. I jumped bail.
Okay. So at that time you had a warrant then?
Yeah,
okay.
there was a warrant that had dropped on me. I was crazy at the time. I mean, I could have done a year's time standing on my head. But I jumped bail. And so I was burglarizing homes in Miami Beach. And I was staying at the Moulin Rouge Hotel in the Beachcomber. And so I went out one Saturday night. I think it was Christmas Eve, quite frankly, it was. And the place was crowded with people. Miami Beach it's a bazaar. Everybody go there for Christmas, at least rich people do. All kind of Rolls Royces and expensive cars up and down what is known as Collins Avenue. So I went out to burglarize a home that night, and I couldn't find anything. Everywhere I went, there were either people in the house, or I didn't think I wanted to crack that house. I would never go in a house when people were there. I would never do that. So after being out there for an hour at night, I didn't find anything. So I came back to the hotel, but I had my burglar tools with me, which is basically just a screwdriver and maybe a little small hammer. Somehow or another, the police had gotten word that I was living at the Moulin Rouge, and they were waiting for me when I came back. And I put up a good fight. I ran. They caught me and took me to the Miami Beach jail and beat the living daylights out of me. They stomped me. They kicked me. They cracked my rib. They cracked my teeth. They called me nigger. They did everything they could possibly. They put me in the hospital, the Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami for 2 weeks. And I went to trial. And I wouldn't cop a plea. So they convicted me of burglary. I didn't burglarize the house. I just had the burglar tools.
Okay.
I threw those away. But I got convicted of burglary anyway. And I was sentenced to 3 years at a maximum security prison in Rayford, Florida, called Union Correctional Facility. The warrant dropped on me from New York City, armed robbery. They actually came and got me from Florida, brought me back to New York and tried me. Again, I wouldn't cop a plea. I wouldn't say I was guilty because I didn't think I was. And I got 10 years
In New York.
in New York. So now I got 3 years in Florida. I got 10 years. But the judge was decent enough to make them run concurrent. That is to say, the sentences at the time I'd served already in Florida was deleted off of the 10-year sentence.
So were they trying you federally, or it was just individually in each state?
Individual in each
Okay.
state. So I once I finished my time in Florida, they came and got me again and brought me back to New York, sent me to Dannemora, Clinton, upstate near Canada. I was classified there, and then they sent me to Auburn, where I spent the rest of my 10-year sentence, but only did 3.5 years
Altogether.
on both sentences, which was a miracle. And I was released in June of 1978. My sister was going to this church. I was released on Thursday. I came to this church on Sunday. I joined it. I've been here ever since.
So you've led ATLA, right?
Yeah.
ATLA World Missionary Church for 40 years, a few decades now.
Yeah.
What does this church mean to you and the rest the rest of the Harlem community?
Well, Atla is the new name for Harlem.
ATLA, okay.
Atla. It's Atla, A-T-L-A-H. It was 33 years ago that I was praying in this building in my house. I live up on, the time I lived on the top floor. And the Lord spoke to me in the prayer meeting spiritually, and I pronounced the word Atla, and he said to me, that's the new name I've given for the community formerly known as Harlem. It means the land where the people shall walk barefoot, because the land is holy ground. And my job was to call men to righteousness, to lead their homes. The very thing that I did not do, I'm now called to do. To be leaders, not just in their homes, but be leaders in the community, supporting their wives spiritually and financially, taking care of their children, entrepreneurs, business purpose. That's my mission. That's my call. And that's what I'm here to do here in Harlem. That happened 33 years ago.
So you've been a pastor for decades.
Yeah.
Why now run for the mayor of New York City?
I believe that the work that I've done without city help, without federal government, without federal money or state or city money, that I've been able to do the work in the lives of people in this church, give me City Hall, put me in charge of the 900,000 students in the New York City school system, and I can make a difference. I can change this city. I can stop the going to prison. I can stop it. I know what it's like. I know what the experiences are like. Give me City Hall. And the other reason, of course, is that I think there's some spiritual aspects to it, that the timing of it, Eric Adams being the person he is, with Donald Trump being the monster that he is, that I see it as a spiritual calling that's really beyond my power to resist it. The homelessness in New York City, men sleeping on the street. If you thought I felt bad when I saw the men nodding out back in the 1960s and 70s, it's worse now. The men that are sleeping on the streets, that are homeless, that are purposeless, and also on drugs. The women and children are sleeping in homeless shelters. That was never the case going back 40, 50 years ago. At least there was poverty, but people at least had a place to stay. Families would take care of each other. The situation with the political situation with so-called black leaders, hell, we've had a black president who didn't do a damn thing for black people. I mean, nothing. They gave, thinking this man's going, he didn't do a damn thing.
I think many would agree with you on that.
Our lives have gotten worse. Perhaps I can make it better. If I could give me the second most powerful job in America, and I can do something, I will not stop from the day I made the commitment to leave Procter and Gamble to help my brothers on the street because I saw them nodding out. And I have not changed that. If I get the office of the mayor of the city of New York, I'm going to help people. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to skinflint. I'm going to help people. If I get that job, I'm going to actually help people.
Originally, you were running on the Republican ballot,
Yeah,
correct?
I
And
did.
now you're independent.
Yeah.
What happened to cause you change and decide to run independent?
I couldn't be a Democrat. That's the first thing.
Why?
They're liberal, godless, pro LGBTQ, pro woke, pro anti God ideas. There's no way I can live with that. I've seen what that has done already, how it has destroyed people. There's no way I could be a Democrat. I really was not really a full Republican. I probably should have better identified myself in spiritual terms, about political terms as a conservative. But the Republican Party kicked me to the curb, mainly because I've told the truth about Donald Trump, that he's a pathological degenerate. The man is sick. He ought to be in the cuckoo's nest. Yeah, man, that man should be in prison some damn where.
Who?
Donald Trump.
And who else?
No, just him.
Oh,
Right?
Donald Trump. Okay.
No, he. That's a sick ass man. That man ain't got no business. At any rate, so they kicked me to the curb because Trump controls the Republican Party here in New York City.
Okay.
Hell, he's controlling Eric Adams right now. So they kicked me to the curb, right? So then, I'll be an independent. So that's what got me to the independent structure.
Since you're independent, meaning you're not either Republican or Democratic, you don't really have access as readily available to their donor base.
That's true.
So, how would that freedom of you being independent impact you in being able to foster deals or make alliances with coalitions?
I plan to take my message to the people. Everywhere I go, people are sick and tired of politicians. They don't trust them. They're disappointed. And I want to represent to the people that I will not compromise. If they will help me, I will help them. The other thing is my show enough real stomp down plan, I can't tell you because I don't want it to be public yet.
Okay.
I'm gonna kick their asses.
You've called gentrification one of Harlem's biggest threats. If elected mayor, how would you address gentrification in Harlem, but not just Harlem, but in every borough where there is a Black or Hispanic community that is seeing gentrification change their communities?
I was out in Bedford-Stuyvesant where I first came to New York. I lived. It's mournful. It's painful to see what white folk have done to that community in terms of the takeover, the sidewalk cafes, the restaurants, the staid Gothic buildings that were once owned by Black people. And white folk just walk around Bed-Stuy and here in Harlem like they own the damn world. I mean, what an attitude that they have. And they do the same thing in Harlem. Fort Greene, you're young, so you wouldn't know, but downtown Brooklyn and Fort Greene area, the Fort Greene projects, the Marcy project where Jay-Z comes from. But the downtown area, billions of dollars have been invested in skyscraper buildings. I mean, it's just a gold mine where they walk there. They got a place down there called Dumbo underneath the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah.
Where they've just gone and taken over all that beautiful property. And they walk around like gods. Gentrification is genocide. That's what it is. This used to be a beautiful community. When I first came to Pastor Stanley, all the great pastors of this community, Lennox Lounge, Billie Holiday, Small's Paradise, all the restaurants. I mean, it was a beautiful place. Men walked around in suits, women walked around in fur coats, and we lost our way because we left the standards and procedures and morals that had guided us from the end of slavery till the mid 1930s and 40s. And then with people like W.E.B. Du Bois and a group of others, except for Marcus Garvey, we lost our way and we began to blame and look for politicians and political ideas to make our lives better, and we lost the community. But if you're asking me a question, what would I do? A part of that is also unrevealable at this time, but I'll say this. Everybody who lost their homes to foreclosure, people that lost, if you will, generational wealth because the father owned the house and the son should have gotten it. As the property values went up, and they should have been able to have access to all that money for that these buildings are worth. They lost all of that. Some little white girl from Missouri now owns it. I'm gonna make sure they get compensated.
You have a slogan, right? Where it's make crooked places straight and make the crooks pay. Who are these crooks that you're mentioning, and what does accountability look like if you become mayor?
Let me say this. I'm not a racist. All right? I'm not. Um, I know I talk about white people walking around like gods, and they do. But I'm not a racist. I don't hate white folk. I don't hate anybody. Hate is not a weapon. It doesn't suffice me. I think I got better things to do than try to get through life hating. But in terms of, what's your question again? Because I went out.
Your slogan, make the crooked places straight and make the crooks pay. Who are these crooks that you're referring to, and how will you hold them accountable?
I would start with the corporate America. They're crooks. Wall Street. Hell, everybody. They're crooks. They get away. Listen, during the housing crisis back in 2008, and when the housing market fell apart, the Wall Street fell apart, and AIG closed, Lehman Brothers closed down, Barclays Bank tried to buy out, and there was a major economic crash, and people lost their homes, foreclosures all over America, not just in all over America. People lost their home because of subprime mortgages, and a lot of people died as a result of losing their house and losing their property. Not one banker went to jail. It's a damn shame. Not one banker, not one investor, not one person from Wall Street went to jail with all of the crime that went on in that subprime mortgage business, the crashing of Wall Street. Not one person. They're still downtown now making money. So they're crooks in that regard, but they're not the only ones. You got crooks in the Justice Department, and then you got the gentrifiers as well. So
how would you hold them all accountable if you became mayor?
well, I can't tell you that.
Okay.
But there is a way that they can be held accountable.
You said publicly that you want Harlem to be a homo-free zone.
Yeah, I did say that.
And you preach strongly against the LGBTQ community. So since New Yorkers do identify as LGBTQ, how do you respond to LGBTQ New Yorkers who fear that you might use City Hall to push your beliefs into policy?
We have a school here, and you'll see the courtyard when you go back out. And one day the children are out there in the courtyard playing, little children, 7, 8, and 9-year-olds. And this lesbian woman walked up, pulled up her skirt, and said, I like to eat pussy.
She
right?
said that to the kids?
Yeah, to the kids. We should be free of that. We shouldn't. And they did it to spite me. The children don't know what's going on, but she wanted to spite me. They when you go
So
back,
she did that to children.
yeah, yeah,
That's kind of
yeah. It is. No, it is.
backwards thinking.
And they marched against me. They've had protests. They've had rainbow protests. They marched against our prayer meeting. 300 or 400 of them stood outside and yelling and screaming. They've thrown rocks through the window. They've climbed up on the announcement board we have out there, wrote "God is gay." We should be free of that. That's demonizing, and Harlem should be free of that. If you want to be a homo, listen. You want to be a homo? Knock yourself out. You want to go in the bedroom, have sex with another man? Knock yourself out. Just don't force me to say yes. Don't force me to give up my upbringing, my biblical beliefs, my cultural and my moral beliefs, my freedom of speech, my freedom of religion. Don't force me. Don't tell me that I don't have a right to disagree. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me I have a right I have the freedom of speech. Now you may not agree with me, but I have the right to say what you're doing is wrong. The Bible says you're wrong. The universe says you're wrong. Day and night says there's no homosexuality. For 10,000 years, the whole world has looked at that whole phenomena while it is going on, but nobody has ever praised it. I'm not going to praise it. So Harlem should be free of that, yes.
Now, this is a very talked about and controversial issue when it comes to the LGBTQ community. What are your thoughts on public schools teaching LGBTQ agenda or lessons to children?
Sexual molestation, and they should go to jail. When Andrew Cuomo was asked a question by Mohammed Mandami the other day. Mandami said, did you have a 25-year-old girl in your office and close the door and ask her if she would date older men? She's 25 years old. I don't know how old Ann Cuomo is. But that was a sexual intrusion. And it really was, for him to do that to her, to a young girl. For a 40-year-old man to sit down with a 6-year-old boy and say about maybe you want to have homosexual sex in the anus, that's sexual molestation. You can call it teaching, you can call it what the hell you want to, but that is sexual molestation. A lot of people get their jollies just about talking about sex. They don't have to have physical contact. They get off sexually just by talking about it. Think of a young girl, a young boy, you sit down and get among young girls in the classroom, ask Jeffrey Epstein, if you can find him, because he's still alive. And for people to sit down and talk to little girls, little boys, hell, who don't even know what their penis is really for beyond urinating. The vagina, they don't really understand the uniqueness of it. And for an old man to sit there and talk to a little girl, a 10-year-old girl about her vagina, that's molestation. And the school system approves that. It's crazy as hell. It's demonic is what it is.
So then what would you do if you became mayor?
Stop it. Stop it. We will not have that as a practice. The Board of Education, we will not have it. And there are enough parents who would agree. See, the problem with the homosexual, they think they run the damn world. Now, they run New York City. No, they do. But there are enough parents out here who don't approve of that, who would not want that to be the status quo for their children. So I believe I could get the kind of support. Now, you're not going to do that in our schools.
So New York is, a very diverse population. People who are LGBT, people who are straight, people who are Democrat, Republicans, people who are now aligning themselves more with socialism. How would you fairly govern everyone with every different walks of life as mayor of New York City?
The socialism part I may have some issues with in terms of whether there is a large segment of New Yorkers that see themselves as such. I think Mondami is a fraud, is a con man. who perhaps operates under that banner, but the people that voted for him don't really understand what socialism is. They have no idea what that means in terms of its political dynamics. But to answer your question, I would just have to be a good governor. I would have to recognize that people have, for instance, homosexuality. You want to be a homosexual? Don't hate me for disagreeing with it. Go ahead, knock yourself out. You want to be a homosexual? You want to have sex? You want to marry another man? You can do that in New York, but don't tell me that I can't disagree with it. So when you're the mayor of the city of New York, you have a big influence. A lot of people would think that your opinions are powerful. Well, hell, that's going to happen no matter what you do. It's going to happen whether I'm the senator or the president. It's going to happen. You can't avoid that. So one of the things that people have to consider, well, and that people will consider, because the bully pulpit of the office of the mayor has a lot of influence. I wouldn't tell people they can't be homosexual. I tell them I disagree with it. The Bible disagrees with it. That's the people are Republicans. I tell, people, MAGA people, y'all done lost your damn mind. Y'all being played by the biggest pimp con artist. I mean, wake up, white folk. What the hell is wrong with y'all? Don't you, Donald Trump don't give two damns about you. He never has. He never will. He's playing y'all. The other thing is but they're Republicans. Democrats, Obama, David Patterson, Eric Adams, kissing the rear end of Donald Trump. I would have to live with all of that, but I would speak the truth to it.
If you were sitting here with an LGBTQ voter, right?
Right.
What would you say to them directly to make them feel confident that you being as mayor would be in their best interest?
I would probably tell them a little bit about my history of the number of LGBTQ people that have been in this church. I would tell them that the courtyard out there is named after a young man that came to this church who told me his uncle molested him when he was 5 years old, made him do oral sex. And for 45 years, he walked as homosexual. But after hearing me preach, he came and joined this church. He later died of AIDS. I named the courtyard after him to honor him and his life. You know anything about the church, you're going to have homosexual people at the church. I can tell you that right now. If you know anything about the church, they're coming. They're going to come to church. Now, years and years and years, they never promoted it. They never flaunted it. But everybody knew, But as a pastor, you have to deal with that. And I would do the same thing as the mayor. That's how I would deal with homosexual people. The same way until once they start pushing me and saying, you better do this or you better do that. Well, now, wait a minute. You're not going to tell me to go against the Bible, against the Word of God. But I will not reject you. I will not help you. You come to me and you ask for help, I will help you. You have needs, I will, as best God will give me the ability, I will help you. But I'm not going to say yes to sin. Why don't I tell adulterers, hey, all the adulterers in America, New York, come to the church and we're going to make adultery the thing to do. Man, you can do all the adultery, you can do it right here in the pew. I ain't going to do that. Or thieves, or liars. But an adulterer is willing to come, welcome to come, but you can't have that lifestyle.
So the expectation is to change.
Well, I would, listen, I used to be a thief, a robber. I used to be a whole lot of things, I changed. I think I'm better off for having changed. My ideas is to, if you once living in a life of sin, change.
I've heard some people preaching all over Harlem, right? And one thing that stuck out to me when it came to you running for mayor was that I was hearing that God never wanted his people to turn back or go back down to Egypt and beg Egypt for help. So what do you say to people who think that you're trying to be Pharaoh or you're trying to go to Pharaoh to have a position of political power?
I don't know that fits my ideals, my presence. I'm not asking Pharaoh. By the way, I consider Pharaoh my father. I consider the Egyptians my ancestry. I consider those who built the pyramids, the Sphinx, modernized medicine beyond anybody's belief at the particular time, more so than Rome, more so than any other nation. I consider Pharaoh my father. I can call myself a son of Pharaoh. And if you're using Pharaoh as an example, and I don't think that's what you mean, my going to Pharaoh would be simply going back to my father. I do believe this. I do believe that at one time we were probably some of the greatest scientists, doctors, politicians even, uh, physicists that the world had ever seen. Egypt at one time was one of the greatest. Egypt had the Jews enslaved for 400 years.
Yeah, God's people, yeah.
For 400 years. Till Moses came down there and wreaked havoc upon Pharaoh. But I know that's not the question that you're asking. I'm not going begging anybody for anything. Anybody who knows anything about me know I don't beg. I take what I want if someone tries to take it from me or withhold what's rightfully mine. Let me put it that way.
I believe Jesus says something along the lines of, my kingdom is not of this world, right?
That is true.
How do you balance your spiritual calling with seeking political power in the world's biggest city?
Jesus also said, I'm going to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself. And he says, I will come again, meaning he's coming back to earth again. When he comes back to earth again, he's coming back to a kingdom. The Bible also says that heaven, as we understand it, will be vacated. It'll pass away. It will no longer exist. Jesus will not abandon heaven, but he will leave it and come and establish his kingdom here on earth. Revelation chapter 20, that he will live on earth for 1,000 years. Be a period called the reign of peace, where the dead in Christ shall be risen. People like John the Baptizer, David the king, Samuel the prophet, and he will live. And that's what Allah is all about. And at some point, even that kingdom will pass away and there'll be a new heaven and a new earth.
Some pastors say that trying to, get into politics can kind of steer you away from your faith. How do you see yourself balancing both, or do you see yourself combining your faith and being a mayor?
I respect the pastor's ideals. I think it's misinterpreted about the separation of church and state. I think that there is a misunderstanding of what the fathers or founding fathers or constitutionalists meant when they said that the state shall make no religion, that the people shall adhere to, and that there shall be a separation of the two. I think most people have misinterpreted that to say that the church or the pastor should not enter into politics because of the separation of church and state. The pastor, whether he knows it or not, is probably the biggest politician in town because of his endeavors. He deals with the issues of the people. He deals with their homelessness. He deals with their future. He deals with their education. He deals with their well-being, their morals, their structure. The pastor is the biggest politician going, if he understands what his job is, okay, and how uniquely he's been empowered.
When you look at Mayor Adams, what has he gotten wrong, and what is it that you will do better?
Mayor Eric Adams has always been a fraud. Garbage in, garbage out.
Why you say that?
A number of people that I've talked with about him told me when he was a police officer that he really wasn't a good one. Several women brought charges against him that he, as a lieutenant or as a sergeant, asked them for sexual favors and he would move them up the ladder. One woman actually filed charges. I'm not sure where that case is at present. He made it to the rank of lieutenant, but he really wasn't a good police officer. A number of people have said that. And what I mean by the fact he's always been a fraud, he's always been a deceitful person who doesn't have strong mores. He doesn't have a strong commitment to anything except he wanted power. So he was the borough president for a while. He became the mayor through a lot of illegitimate means. But you are who you are. And trying to raise money to be or to gain office, you can be tempted to do some fraudulent things. There's no doubt about it. And he gave into those fraudulent things, but that's not the worst of it. I can forgive him for that. Going back an hour ago, I told you when I was convicted down there in Miami. Listen, in Miami, courts were handing out 100 years to black men like serving pancakes at IHOP. You just got 100 years. Okay, what you did? 100 years. Just get 100 years in prison. You ain't gonna never see the light of day no more. They offered me a plea deal. I said, I'm taking this to trial. I did the same thing here in the state of New York. Eric Adams, the charges that were brought against him, he should have gone to trial, got himself a fancy lawyer. Hell, hire me. Got himself a lawyer, put that case before the jury, and let the jury decide whether he's guilty or not. He chopped up, went down to Donald Trump and asked Trump to get him back. I mean, come on, man. You know, act like a man, stand up.
I think the Attorney General ended up dropping the charges against him, right?
Because Trump told him to do it. He didn't do it on his own, and it wasn't done willing. A number of attorney generals left the Southern District and left the Department of Justice because they were not going to do it. They knew he was guilty. They weren't going to do it. But this other creep did it. But he should have gone to trial, stand up, and take it like a man. But so he's a fraud.
Okay.
Internally, he didn't have the Constitution to say, I'm going to win this. I'm going to trial. He didn't have the Constitution to do that internally.
Now, Eric Adams calls himself a blue-collar mayor, and that he focuses a lot on public safety and affordability. What will make your plans for safety different and better than his?
First of all, it's a lie. Whatever he's saying, it's a lie. But on a broader scale, because you're going to ask me about these politicians, if you look carefully what all of them are saying, whether they white, black, chartreuse, or whoever, if you listen to them, all of them are saying, we're going to fix black people. Crime, homelessness, affordability, all those are black people's problems. Everything that they say is about black people. They're not talking about white people. Crime is not an issue with white folk. Affordability of housing is not an issue with white folk. Now, there's some people that have some issues. Homelessness is not an issue with white folk. This is all about black people and their problems. They're not talking about corporate. They're not talking about Wall Street. They're not talking about the Upper East Side or the Upper West Side. All of them, I don't care who they are, Black, Andrew Cuomo, Eric Adams, Mondami. It's about black people. The smaller minority of black people got problems, and everybody's running on the backs of what black people need. Now, it's true, they do need it. But I think what the whole world fails to realize is they're not running to be white people. Well, they're not talking about white people's problems. They're not doing that. They're not talking about Wall Street. They're not talking about, there's no homelessness on Wall Street. There's no affordability problem with Wall Street. They're talking about, so they need to come out and say that and realize it's because of them that black people have these problems. One of the reasons why crime is a problem in New York is because black families don't have black fathers.
I've heard that before.
If that black man was in that house, knocking that boy's head every time he act like he thought about it, he wanted to go to school. Well, you're getting your ass up out of here. You're going to school today. You know, we won't need the police to knock him in the head. We won't need if the father trains him, teaches him, makes him be respectful. If the father does that, we can shut down the police, the precincts, we can shut them down. Now, I said this, police people think I'm against them. I'm not. But I become the mayor. A lot of the precincts will have to shut down because I'm going to put that father back in that house.
I've heard that statement about putting black fathers back in the homes. I've heard a lot of
That's what's needed.
black men saying that on the corners here in Harlem. I've heard that exact same statement.
That's what's needed. Then crime goes down. I mean, it goes way down because that's where the crime is coming from. Young black boys. The other thing is, and so I spent some time in prison. I called on Governor Hochul and Eric Adams that if a man's been in prison, no matter what his sentence is, he's been there for 7 years, and he's demonstrated while in prison that he's really got his life together. Let him come out on the street, stand on 125th Street and Lennox Avenue, and talk to the young black girls. Let him go to the schools and talk to the young men. Don't do what I did. Don't. Prison, it ain't worth it. You're young. You don't know what the hell you're doing. You don't have any idea. You probably not, young boys are not scared to go to prison. They don't even think about it. When you're 18, 19, 20, 25, you don't think about prison. You know you're doing a crime, but you don't realize it's going to go, you're going to end up in prison. They don't realize that. Somebody got to tell them. And somebody who understands that process. I told Governor Hochul, there probably, 25, 30 men that you can bring out of prison and give them a salary. Let them go to these schools and let them go talk to these people. And I'm not talking about scared straight either. I'm just talking about the fact that you don't know what you're doing right now. You have no idea what this is going to end up, how this is going to mess up your life. When you can have a great life, but if you go to prison, all bets are off.
I know that Mayor Adams has a gun violence initiative where he's trying to decrease gun violence, and he's had in all the boroughs different clergy members or faith leaders or organizations join. I know one being the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge, where they help the community with gun violence, doing public safety walks, food drives. If elected mayor, would you use the assistance of other faith leaders and clergy members
Yeah.
and organizations to accomplish that goal
Yeah.
of public safety?
I don't know if that would be one of the issues I would use it for, but yes, I would work cooperatively with other, if they're willing to work with me. Of course I would, yes.
Andrew Cuomo, he had to step down as governor due to, pretty serious sex allegations. What's your thoughts about him trying to run for mayor with this baggage behind him?
Well, it's not so much what I think about him, it's what I think about any idiot who's willing to vote for him. Where did the sanctity go that, okay, so you say something to a woman, she's looking good, she ain't your wife, you're working with her, something, you want to get in bed with her, so you try to do something to get in bed with her, right? She said no. You leave it alone. And so that might happen once or twice in your lifetime. But for 12 women to feel so offended by what you did, they took you to the police. That man's a sicko. That man's a sexual predator. Why would anyone want someone who is that demented to be the mayor of the state of New York? I mean, how can you with a straight face say I voted for Andrew Cuomo when he sexually molested all these young women? How could you? Where's your morality? Where's your sense of decency? Where's your sense of priority? That it doesn't matter to you? That's what he did? So he repented for it? Okay, let him repent, but we don't need you as mayor.
Now, I know a pretty popular one right now is Zoran Mamdani, right? And he's kind of running like on a socialist democratic platform. What do you think of his vision, and what's your response to New Yorkers that want that level of government, like a socialist government?
Well, as I said earlier, the people that voted for him are all under the age of 40, most of them. They have no idea what a socialist government means. They also, most of them, come from strong economic-based families where they've never had to think about being hungry. They've never had to live in rat and roach infested apartments or buildings. They lived a probably very structured life. Everything's been taken care of. Probably living in most of those people that voted for him have a a two-parent household. But Mondami is a liar. He's a con man. I call him Donald Trump #2. Yeah, boy, that boy. He's a con artist from way back when, and he's a performer. You know, the Donald Trump got his fame mainly from The Apprentice, being on television, and you
Gonna be a
know,
reality TV
yeah,
star.
yeah. Well, you know how Mondami came to presence on TikTok, on social media. It's different than The Apprentice, but it's the same thing.
Okay.
Using social media, attracting young people to him. He's Donald Trump #2. And what he's promising to do, hell, everybody knows there ain't no free lunch. Everybody knows that. You don't know there's no free lunch. He gonna give you a free ride? Come on now. I mean, you may have been born at night, but not damn. You believe you're gonna get a free lunch. You actually believe that boy gonna give you a free lunch. God damn, you gotta be crazy. He's a con man. He's a liar. And he knows there ain't no free lunch.
So do you think the platform that he's running on and the promises that he's pushing, you think it's realistic or practical?
It's neither realistic and neither definitely practical. But I think that it sounds amusing, I suppose, to someone who really doesn't have a basic grip on life and reality itself. But I don't think people really think they're gonna get a free ride. They just like hearing them say it. You know, they listen. Let me tell you something. MAGA people that follow Donald Trump, no, Donald Trump lied. They know that boy lies. You think the people don't know that down in Tennessee, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi? You don't think they don't know Donald Trump is lying through his teeth? They know that boy is lying.
Okay, I know he did say he wasn't going to touch Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, and then now he's,
It's all gone. Listen, but because he's a con man, listen, some people just born with gifts. Unfortunately, their gifts, Mondami's gift is con artist, and Donald Trump's gift is a con artist. They're just good at it. They're just very good at it. And you can call it charisma, call what the hell you want to call it, but they're good at doing it. And people go for it, even though they know it ain't gonna happen. They just like to hear it.
Now all the I know on TV they broadcast the mayoral debate, and this one question was asked to everyone: would you travel to Israel when you become mayor?
Would I?
Yes.
I've already been there.
So would you go back?
Of
if
course
you
I
become
go
mayor?
there. Yeah, I go there. Absolutely. I've already been to Israel. I was there 10 years ago. I baptized people in the Jordan River. Yeah, I've been to Tel Aviv, been to Jerusalem, been up to the West Bank. I've been up to Capernaum. I've been to Galilee. I've been to the Galilean Sea. Yeah, I've been to Israel. I go again. Yeah, I would.
Okay. Two more questions, Pastor Manning. Is there anything the media or your critics always get wrong about you that you would like to straighten out right here, right now?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't think that they get anything wrong about me. I just think they're biased as hell. And I think they're afraid of me. I think that they know that they can't control me. Put a microphone in my face, I'm going to go to town. If I get on their broadcast, I'm going to convince people I don't give a damn who they're thinking about. When people listen to me, they're going to want to vote for me. And the media knows that. So the media has an interest in controlling who gets the mayor's office. They got an interest in that. They want to control. They can't let somebody who's as powerful as me get on their broadcast and get on their networks. They ain't going to let that happen. No.
Okay. Last question. If you can look directly into the camera.
Which one?
This one here.
All right.
Why should New Yorkers feel confident in giving you their vote?
because I'm worthy. I've served New York for 44 years. I've lived in a homeless shelter for 44 years. I've done the crime and I did the time. I've served 2 million meals to hungry bellies in New York without asking the city of New York for one dime or the federal government for one dime. I've educated over 500 children, and I did all of that with the offering basket and the pulpit of this church. And I've did it consistently, and I've never turned to the right nor to the left. All I want to do is an opportunity to do it at a larger scale from City Hall, and I will get it done. If those things are good things, then that's why I should be the mayor of New York City.
That was my sit down with Pastor James David Manning, right here in the heart of Harlem. You heard his story, his beliefs, and why he says New York City needs someone like him at the top. Agree or disagree, or something in between, but you decide. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. So keep it real, keep it respectful. And if you want more unfiltered conversations like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and share. I'm AG, and this is The Real XP Show.